Call Subcommittee number 2 of Privileges and Elections to order. We have 2 administrative items to take care of. I've been notified by 2 bill patrons that they would like to have their bill stricken. We have first up House Bill 880 from Delegate Lopez. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
There's a second? Motion made, properly seconded to strike House Bill 880 from the docket. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. That bill is stricken from the docket 5-0. We have one more bill to strike. That's House Bill 1031 from Delegate Davis. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made, properly seconded to strike House Bill 1031 from the docket. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. That bill is also stricken from the docket by a vote of 5-0. All right, first bill up, House Bill 542, Delegate Batten.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My House Bill 542 simply reclassifies assistant registrars as deputy registrars, and it clarifies their role within localities. I'm happy to answer any questions of committee members.
All right, any members have any questions of Delegate Batten?
I guess one question, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Bloxham.
So you say it changes the duties? Or
Simply
the
changes
name.
the word from assistant to deputy.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, changing the name, does that change any of the authority or compensation or anything?
Mr. Chair, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Move to report. We do have some comments from the public.
Well, can you mind to withdraw your motion momentarily?
Yes.
Is there anyone here in the room who would like to speak for the bill or against the bill? All right, I think we have, we have Allison Robbins online, I think, on House Bill 542.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Allison Robbins, the General Registrar in the County of Wise, and we strongly support this bill. We appreciate Delegate Batten bringing this bill forward. This is just a simple bill that gives our staff the title that better reflects their job responsibilities and their requirements. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I think that's all the testimony we have. Delegate Bloxham.
To report.
Motion made, properly seconded to recommend for reporting House Bill 542. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 542 is recommended for reporting 6-0. Thank you, Delegate Batten. House Bill 895, Delegate Kilgore.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this invitation to be out here this morning at 7 o'clock. Great to be here. 895, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a substitute. Is that correct?
Yes.
Move substitute. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Substitutes before us.
And I think what the substitute does, it mirrors what has now passed or gone through the Senate, Mr. Chairman. So that will be, as they come across, they'll be the same. So what 895 does, it builds on the Department of Elections multi-year pilot program for post-election risk limiting audits and codifies the best practices tailored to Virginia's election administration process. And what this does, this is a nonpartisan bill that serves to strengthen our election security and increase voter confidence. And what is a risk limiting audit? It's a post-election pre-certification, before certification, to a statistical spot check of randomly selected ballots in randomly selected races to determine whether the outcome was correct. In other words, it's making sure the winner is the winner prior to certifying the race. So probably the best, and that's probably the best time to make sure. So you go in. It doesn't limit anyone's right to have a recount. It doesn't do anything like that. It just allows that spot check. And It includes the best practices and efficiencies for risk limiting audit teams by requiring the State Board of Elections to establish procedures for ballot custody, accounting, security, written record retention, hand-to-eye examination of audited ballots, and guardrails for notification and transparency by notifying the public of the races to be audited, notifying the parties of races to be audited, and opens the risk limiting audit to designated candidate observers, political party observers, and the general public. And it requires a report of the audit result of races chosen for the audit are publicly available on the department's website. And already in the past, the City of Fairfax has already in 2018 under a pilot program started the first risk limiting audit pilot program. And Mr. Chairman, in 2019, your own locality, Bristol City, was involved, as well as some rural and urban areas involved. So in 2021, there was a statewide risk limiting audit conducted at the November 2020 general election. So why we do this is just to assure transparency and integrity. And I would say that if you want me to walk through the bill, I will, but that's basically what this does. I have some subject matter experts here if you want to hear from them. Okay. And if you'll come forward.
Delegate Bloxham, do you have a question at this point?
Just one quick question.
Go ahead.
Sure.
So there's a chance if you have a contested race that you'll just go into a pot and they'll pick one of them? Is it House of Delegates, you get one per every so often? I mean,
it's totally random. Totally random. You know, they might choose whatever district you're in now. I don't know what district you were in 100, but I don't know what you're in.
I'm still 100. I'm still the last one.
Oh, you're still the last one. I was number 1, but I ended up being number 45. So, but it's just random, and that's why that we do it that way. So, and there are supermajority requires if they want to If they want to do more, there's supermajority required on the State Board of Elections so that both parties buy in. So there's a lot of protection in this bill for both political parties. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Waxman, do you have a question now, or do you want to hear from the witness?
If I could ask it now.
Go ahead.
I was the fortunate beneficiary of being one of the people randomly selected for that risk limiting audit this election. Looking at the new language really quickly, I wasn't sure if there was a deadline for when the risk limiting audit should be, and if it would hold up all of the elections or certain periods or just those elections.
Yeah, so moving it to I'm Dr. Audrey Malagon. I'm a professor of mathematics at Virginia Wesleyan University, and I'm also a mathematical advisor to Verified Voting, a nonpartisan organization that supports research and best practices in audits. So I'm here today on behalf of Verified Voting. And best practices are obviously to do it pre-certification so that if there's an issue, it can be corrected. And so this moves the certification deadline out to the first Monday in November for the races that are being audited, so that in December, I'm sorry, thank you. It's really early this morning. I've only had 1 cup of coffee. It moves it out to the first Monday in December so that the races that are being audited have time to complete that pre-certification. So that's the deadline for the state certification then. And we've talked to various stakeholders about that deadline to make sure that that's workable to do an audit, but also doesn't interfere with other parts of, actually seating candidates.
Are there any additional questions from subcommittee members at this point? All right, anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Yes, if okay, allowed, I'd like to say a few words.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're a nonpartisan organization that serves as a resource for best practices and research where election and technology intersect, including audits. As Delegate Kilgore mentioned, Virginia has established a successful pilot program of post-election audits based on earlier legislation. The department and registrars are currently conducting these using existing resources to ensure that elections tabulated by machines are accurate. This bill builds on that success of that program and basically just ensures that those become a routine part of election security in the Commonwealth. And just to give you a quick snapshot of what a risk limiting audit does, it's focusing on auditing the actual paper ballots that were cast by the voters just to make sure that the outcome that the machine tabulates would match what's actually on the paper. So I like to think of it very analogous to quality control for elections. Like any manufacturer is going to spot check their production line and make sure the products they're putting out are what they expect. So we're spot checking some ballots that that the voters actually marked and interacted with to make sure that we're using technology responsibly. We counted them with the machines. We go back and check the paper just to make sure that everything is lining up. And then HB 895 also uses voter verifiable paper ballots as a recovery plan in the event that something did go wrong. So by checking these prior to certification, we're just giving voters and candidates confidence that the certified election outcomes are correct. I also want to point out that this legislation phases in requirements to conduct these best practicing audits built on the pilot program. So they're going to become more routine, more expedient than during the pilot phase, but it does have that certification deadline extension to give them ample time to do this. It doesn't overly prescribe procedures. It doesn't interfere with codes for recounts. But one thing that it does do more than validate that individual machines were working correctly. So all the machines are tested before the election. This just makes sure that they performed correctly during the election. So verified voting is very much in support of HB 895 because it builds on those best practices to give Virginians confidence in those election outcomes.
Thank you. I think we do have one person online who wishes to speak in favor. Ms. Gerchik, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Lisa Coteen Gerchik, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Virginia this morning. The League supports HB 895, which provides in detail for the routine conduct of risk-limiting audits in Virginia's elections. Risk-limiting audits, or RLAs, are the gold standard of post-election audits. By auditing actual ballots cast by voters, RLAs confirm the will of the voters. And if the election's reported result is in doubt, the audit can expand to determine the real winner. The Commonwealth and localities successfully conducted a series of pilot audits, the statewide audit of the presidential and vice presidential races, and recently 2 House of Delegate races. League members observed and even participated in many of these audits and find the process works well. Risk-limiting audits are a sophisticated, statistically accurate means of confirming correct election outcomes within a reasonable time frame and cost. We urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Delegate Kilgore, you have the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
That's all I have.
Committee operates by motion. Been a motion made properly seconded to recommend for reporting.
Speak to the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Sickles.
Thank you. I wanted to say a lot of people worked on this bill to make it happen. I think the registrars were concerned about being able to get all this done before certification. I think there is, I missed some of the testimony, but I do believe that that concern has been met. And I think the key part of voting for this is that if the election is within a recount margin, this doesn't apply.
Right.
Because you're gonna count every ballot anyway.
Right.
So that is it won't have anything to do with when you get into the recount situation. So that's why I'm voting yes. Thanks.
Thank you, Delegate Sickles. All right, there's a motion made and properly seconded to recommend for reporting with amendment House Bill 895.
So, yeah.
Reporting with substitute. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 895 is recommended for reporting with substitute 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Delegate Converse Feller, House Bill 1262. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, and the committee, thank you for allowing me to present this bill. This is a companion bill to Senator Spruill's bill. His remarks can't say it much better than mine. I listened to him again this morning. This bill simply adds party affiliation to the ballot for constitutional officers. Candidates seeking for these offices many times seek their party's nomination, but then that designation is not seen on the ballot. Candidates who do not seek nomination would simply be listed as an independent on the ballot. The way it has been explained and the way it makes sense is last year we did try and through a bill remove the party nomination, and nobody wanted to remove the party nomination last year. So this year, Senator Spruill said, okay, if you're going to run on a party nomination, it's time to own the party and have that nomination on the ballot. So it has passed the Senate, and it will be in front of the House, so I hope it's the pleasure of this body to pass my companion version, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any questions of Delegate Converse Fowler? Delegate Williams.
Delegate Fowler, have you been able to talk with constitutional officers like commissioners of revenues and sheriffs about whether or not they support this bill?
I know the Sheriff's Association does not support this bill, but they also let my husband go in December, so there's some political ramifications going on, and I think if we're going to run by political party with constitutional offices, I think we need to own the political party that we are running on.
Follow up.
Delegate Williams.
But these political parties, or sorry, they're not political parties. These positions are supposed to be hyper nonpartisan. Wouldn't you agree?
I would absolutely agree.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Waxman.
Yes, I've actually been contacted by a number of constitutional officers that indicate that they're not in favor of this because they don't want the party affiliation tied to their name, just because they do have to be so nonpartisan in their role at the local level. I'm surprised you're saying you haven't heard that, or?
I would say to the delegate, Mr. Chair, that I have heard that, but it's kind of like making your own rules in a game that you benefit from part of it and not the other. So it's a difference of opinion and policy, I think it comes down to, Mr. Chair and Delegate Waxman.
Delegate Munden-King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for the patron or the staff. Have we ever used a political party with these constitutional officers?
Mr. Chair, if I could, yes. Up until a few years ago, if you look at the history in LIS, they were, and there was an effort to remove them, so they still get the benefit of the party nomination. And I understand the Virginia way, and I understand we've been doing this a long time, but I do wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Chair, that this should be a very nonpartisan position. And if we are going to use the benefit of the nomination process and the party having the support, it would seem appropriate to have that D or R after your name, or outdo it completely, which is my bill from last year, which I would gladly look on and work on again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Anyone here in the audience wish to speak in favor of the bill? I think everyone we have online is against, I believe. All right, do we have anyone here in the room who would wish to speak in opposition? Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan Albert on behalf of the Treasurers Association of Virginia. This bill, of course, has been before the Privileges and Elections Committee a number of times. It's failed a number of times. And I think the reason is very simple. Anything that tends to make these offices more partisan is something that most people think is a really bad idea. We don't particularly benefit from partisan tax collectors or partisan prosecutors or partisan court clerks, for goodness sake. So we've got several of the elected treasurers and commissioners here and online. Rebecca Longacre, who's the Chesterfield treasurer, is here, and perhaps you could hear from her for just a moment and get to the people online. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Committee. I am Rebecca Longacre, Treasurer, Chesterfield County, and as a treasurer, I am opposed to this bill. The Constitution of Virginia causes us to be elected to allow local citizens to have a voice in their government. Our powers derive from the Constitution of Virginia, from the code, from our ordinances, and from case law. We don't make policy. We implement the policy that you all, the General Assembly, establish for us. We're akin to directors, full-time positions that run the jails, that run prosecutions and courts, that do the property assessments, for me, to collect taxes. There's no Republican or Democrat way to bill and collect taxes or to invest local revenue. For a director, if you're going to hire one, you're going to look at the qualifications, you're going to look at the knowledge and the experience. That's the same with constitutional officers. We need to be looked at as our qualifications, our knowledge, and our experience. So again, I ask you all to oppose this bill. Thank you very much.
I think we have a question for you, Delegate Sickles.
So tell me if I'm wrong about this. My understanding is that if you run or if you seek a party nomination, then the bill requires that you be on the ballot if you seek a party nomination, if you go through a nominating process. Is that right?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I find your arguments very appealing. It makes sense. In Fairfax, we don't even elect this position. You know, it's appointed, both the collection and the administration of our tax department. But the part that is appealing to me is that you sought a party nomination, but then you want to go on the ballot and not tell anybody what it is. So how do you square that circle, or circle that square, whatever it is?
In essence, it's a bit of the climate nowadays. You'll have two opponents if you go as independent, because there's going to be someone in the party, someone in the party. It comes down to, if you look at the ballot and you see R's and D's, this wave or that wave will vote out a qualified incumbent who has been doing the job for years and knows what they're doing, for someone who has no idea how to run the office. You don't want someone running, I've got $1 billion in investment portfolio. You don't want someone coming in that doesn't know how to do that. Someone that doesn't know the code. Yeah, they can get caught up, but at what cost to the citizens? It's a disservice to them not to have a hired director that is properly qualified for the job.
Delegate Bloxham.
Yes, sir. Just a comment at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Munden King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I plan to support this, and I just want to comment that a lot of us are novices, including our new governor, new to the political process, but as people who want to serve, and I feel that it's only fair to the citizens that they know if a person is seeking a particular party's support or not. And I think that for too long, this has been used by some, especially during political season. We know which constitutional officers are supporting which candidates because they're allowed to appear in ads, in support of statewide candidates, et cetera. While I do understand for your role in particular, and it's unfortunate that is lumped into this category, I think this is an important piece of legislation for keeping voters informed of who and they're voting for and the priorities of those people. So thank you for your testimony. It definitely gave me something to consider.
All right. Anyone else here in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? We will go to the electronic sign-up queue. Let's see. Ms. Babb?
Good morning. I'm Donna Babb, the City Treasurer for the City of Franklin. I'm also President-elect of the Treasurers Association, and I ask that you vote against H. Bill 1262. I'm not going to go back and give everything that Ms. Longnecker just spoke on, but the one thing that I would like to say is that we are required by the Constitution of Virginia, and we follow the Code of Virginia our local ordinances and case laws. We don't make any policies, so it doesn't matter whether we are a Republican or a Democrat. On a personal note, I am an independent. I run independent. I serve my citizens who are Republicans and who are Democrats. It doesn't matter to me what party line they follow. I do my job based on what the law requires me to do. So I ask again, I know others want to speak, and Ms. Longnecker gave a great presentation for the Treasurers Association. I just want to ask that you oppose Bill 1262. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Paige Johnson. I'm the elected Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Fairfax, and I'm legislative co-chair for the Commissioner of Revenue Association. I'm here to speak against this bill, as I have done several times in the past. Of the 645 elected constitutional officers in Virginia, it is true that a minority of them do run with party identification or seek the party nomination. However, the majority of us do not avail ourselves of the party process and run as independents and nonpartisan. The reason, just to pick up on the question, the reason that this is troubling for many of us is while we run as independents and are nonpartisan, the identification on the ballot will embolden, we feel, and will the prevailing parties within our jurisdictions will seek to place in candidacy Democratic and or Republican, and we would clearly identify those of us that are independent as independent. So it does, and it will increase partisan politics in positions that clearly do not need to be partisan, and we should not be. I'll just end, because I know the party's time is limited, or the committee's time is limited. I'll just end by saying local elections are best served by addressing local issues, not party issues. In our elections, we are not party connected. We are neighbors serving neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Gerchik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia, I will share this with you. HB 1262 would negatively affect local races, transforming them into partisan contests. Clerks of the circuit court, treasurers, commissioners of the revenue, commonwealth's attorneys, and sheriffs all serve their residents of their communities without partisanship. Their constituents often know them personally. Candidates for these offices should be elected based on competence, not partisan identification. There is no need to nationalize elections for local office. The League opposes this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Cantwell.
Good morning. My name is Mike Cantwell. I'm the Vice President of Fair Vote Virginia and the Virginia chapter leader for the Veterans for Political Innovation. I'm a retired naval officer, a federal government employee, and a 30-year resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Under current law, federal and state, a retiring active duty soldier or sailor or a federal government employee has the right to run for a local constitutional office as an independent. If HB 1262 is enacted, they would risk violating federal law, the Hatch Act, if they campaigned for office in a partisan election, even if they ran as an independent. They would be prohibited from participating in partisan political activities, such as gathering petition signatures or hosting fundraisers for a friend or neighbor. Do we really want to put a party label on sheriffs, commissioners of revenue, treasurers, commonwealth's attorneys, and clerks of the court? Most voters say no. Voters are tired of toxic partisan rhetoric. They want honest, competent local elected officials who will swear an oath to serve and protect their local communities. I respectfully ask that you will keep the status quo and allow retiring military members and federal government employees to continue to run for local constitutional offices. I encourage you to lay this bill on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you all. My name is Damian Hughes from Gate City, Virginia. I'm a member of the Virginia Independent Voters Association, as well as a member of the Virginia chapter of the nonpartisan group Represent Us. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning before the subcommittee. I am a man of few words, so I'll keep this short and sweet. Constitutional officers have a very specific set of duties, and those duties do not change based on party affiliation or a lack of party affiliation. All this bill does is discourage good, qualified people from running who want to serve their local communities without the hassle of political tug-of-war. Does everything in this country have to be made partisan? Can't constitutional officers simply be allowed to do their jobs instead of being made to kowtow to partisan donors and party bosses? There is no benefit to constitutional officers having to declare an allegiance to a political party. And with all due respect to the bill's patron, there is no good reason why this bill should pass. I oppose it, and I urge all of you to oppose it as well. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful attention, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Lilliston just joined as well. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. James Lilliston, Accomack County Treasurer on the Eastern Shore of Virginia. I'm reaching out to you as well on behalf of the Treasurers Association of Virginia and with regards to HB Bill 1262. For years, our position, making these offices partisan would not be a good thing. As required, our positions are elected as a way to give our citizens a voice in local government. Our authority is strictly based from the Constitution, Code of Virginia, and our local ordinances. These are at times complex jobs, and running on who is best qualified rather than party lines will best serve the public interest. We have constitutional officers and most of the time have thankless jobs. We're not policymakers. We are trying to serve the citizens fairly and equally without political leanings or political party identifications. With that being said, I kindly and respectfully ask you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any additional questions of the patron? Delegate Bloxham, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, yes, sir. Good to see my treasurer on there this morning, and he's a great example of nonpartisanship in this position. Yes, he did come to the Republican Party and seek our support, and then the next night he went to the Democratic unit to seek their support. It needs to be a nonpartisan, so I respectfully ask that we lay the bill on the table.
Been a motion made and properly seconded to lay House Bill 1262 on the table. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board.
Mr. Chair, no discussion on that motion?
That one's not debatable.
Okay, thanks.
Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1262 is laid on the table 5-3. Thank you, Delegate.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Leftwich and Delegate LaRock, I think you all have identical bills. Do you want to go in tandem? Have you guys talked about how you want to do this?
Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that if Delegate Leftwich's bill goes forward, that mine be laid on the table.
Okay.
And he's promised me that he'd read the first two sentences of a letter that was sent to me. I think you'll find it very interesting. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. So then House Bill 1082 is before us. Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we sometimes submit legislation upon request. So upon request, I'm going to read these first two sentences. It's the first time I've read them. I hope they're not salacious. Anyway, first First and most importantly, we thank you for your selfless service to the citizens of the state of Virginia. The time and energy that you put into work you need to do at this time of year is unsurpassed. As the mayors of smaller localities, we respectfully request your support for House Bill 1082 and House Bill 1109. And it's signed by, there's more, but that's the first two sentences. That's all I promised to read. Signed by, looks like about 7 or 8 mayors. As you know, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, last year, Senate bill forced localities to hold all of their elections in November. I can tell you that from my locality, even though the senator from my city introduced the bill, I've gotten more emails about this than I have the Second Amendment or life. And I just simply think that it's unfair to force localities to hold their elections in November. What we have found is that when we do that, the issues on a national stage interfere with the issues that resonate on a local level, and they tend to dominate the conversation. It's more expensive to run those elections because you're competing for airtime with people who have millions and millions of dollars buying radio time and TV time and send out mail. And so if you get 10 pieces of junk mail, you don't read any of them, but if you get one piece of junk mail from a politician, perhaps that's the only piece you tend to read that. So I think this really should be something that local governments should be able to choose for themselves, and I ask the committee to look favorably upon the bill.
All right. Any questions of Delegate Leftwich? We have anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? I think we have one person online who wishes to speak in favor. Ms. Turk?
Good.
I think you may be on mute.
So sorry.
There you go.
Good morning. My name is Renee Turk, and I'm mayor for the city of Salem. I appreciate the fact that you're allowing me to speak this morning, and I hope that if you all have not read the letter that was sent from several of the mayors in Southwest and Northern Virginia, that you take a moment to read it before you vote. One of the points I did not have in that letter, we did not have in that letter, is one I will make this morning. Mississippi, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, and Virginia, 5 out of 50 states have one thing in common, and that's state elections held in odd years. The passing of Bill 1147 last year forced local governments to do what our own state traditionally does not do. Virginia has resisted moving to even year elections since 1851. That's 171 years. And why? Well, the conventional wisdom that's often repeated in legislative circles is that Virginia does not want to moor its ship to the federal man of war, said UVA professor Dick Howard, who helped author Virginia's current constitution. Virginia politicians seem to believe that the off-year schedule helps insulate the state from national moods. It's just as important to insulate these localities from state and national moods. You all understand that sentiment. We respectfully ask that the same consideration be given back to local government. We're being forced to hold our elections in November in connection with federal elections, while all state-held offices hold their election in odd years. Some of you made a decision for others that you have refused to make for yourselves, and that decision will make local elections disappear in the fog of federal elections. You now have a chance to rectify that decision and take us out of the shadow of federal elections. It is what's best for our citizens, your local governments, and the people that you represent. So I respectfully ask that you please support House Bills 1082 and 1109. Since 1109 is off the table, 1082. Thank you all for a moment to speak this morning.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition? I think we have one online in opposition. Ms. Gerchik.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm Lisa Coteen-Gerchik for the League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League does not support HB 1082 because voter turnout for local elections in May is lower than it is in November elections. We supported moving the elections to November, specifically to encourage voters to participate in city and town elections. And this bill would suppress that level of participation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any final questions of Delegate Leftwich? Delegate, last word. Hold on. Delegate Bloxham. Okay. Okay. Delegate Leftwich, go ahead.
So the argument of higher voter turnout is often made in opposition to the measure I brought forward. And what I would say to you is that, and I know this from going to the polls, that a large number of those people are out there to vote on a federal issue, and they're surprised that it's a local ballot. And so I don't think that it's higher voter turnout for the issues on the ballot. It may be higher voter turnout. And so if people are interested in an issue, that's what brings them to the ballot. It's not the fact that it's a local or federal election. I hope that made sense. I might not agree with it, but I hope what I tried to convey came out the way it was supposed to.
Delegate Munden King, did you have a question for Delegate Leftwich? Okay. All right, Delegate Bloxham.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The one comment I would like to make is a small town like Belhaven on the Eastern Shore is split by the county line. So in this last election, not only did you have a town election, you had county boards of supervisors, you had a statewide, so they were all in different areas. It was a fiasco. So I'm very much in support of this bill, and I move to pass the bill.
All right, been a motion made, properly seconded to recommend for reporting House Bill 1082. Members wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1082 is recommended for reporting 5-3. Thank you, Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
And while we're at it, Delegate LaRock's request, I think, was to lay House Bill 1109 on the table. And motion made, properly seconded to recommend or to lay House Bill 1109 on the table. Those wishing to vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1109 is laid on the table 8-0. All right, last bill on the docket, House Bill 1233. Delegate Cordoza, come on up.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. This bill will amend a section of the code that would require district-based voting to be balanced in a certain way. This issue was basically designed to fix one specific situation in a very highly populated city, and it caught up two smaller cities that don't have the same issues in it in the language. This would simply amend the language to where it would only apply to cities with populations higher than 25,000 people, just to only target the places that have a problem. I represent a small town, a city, Poquoson, that does not have an issue with any kind of discrimination. It is a very similar population that votes very similar, and we only have 3 districts, so there's no need for this. This will actually hurt them, and we won't solve any problems because there's no problem to solve there. So,
all right. Delegate Taylor.
I'm just curious, I always thought that a city had to request a charter change in order for something like this to take place. Would this supersede a local charter change?
So this is not taking away their district-based voting. This is just there's a law that was put in place that puts certain requirements and roles on the district-based voting system. This will simply say that law only applies to cities above a certain population.
So I think the answer to that is that what you're trying to do puts in 25,000, and there was no population threshold prior to this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, Delegate Sickles.
What does the bill do?
I'm not sure if you're aware of the issue that we had in Virginia Beach. There were district-based voting, but people out at large were able to vote 4 people that would represent districts, which there was a claim that it was basically there was someone who was in a district, they voted for someone in their district, but other people outside of their district were able to vote for someone else and basically take that away. This is not an issue we have in my small city. Not saying everyone votes the same, but the majority votes very generally the same. So there is no jimmy rigging of a vote that can happen. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
I want to take up anyone's time trying to figure out how you don't have, never mind.
Okay. All right. Anyone here in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Any last questions of the delegate? Last word?
This is a small change. This was designed this law was designed to fix a specific problem. That problem does not exist in smaller towns. We need to exempt them so we don't put these overly stringent rules on them. It has nothing to do with them.
All right. Thank you. The committee operates by motion. Motion made, properly seconded to recommend for reporting House Bill 1233. Members wishing to vote, vote on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1233 fails to report by a vote of 3 to 5.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Cordoza. I think that is the last bill on our docket, and certainly want to thank all the subcommittee members for being at this bright and early subcommittee. If it makes you feel any better, I did ask the chairman for an alternate time, and the one she offered us was 6:30 a.m., which I declined. So anyway, all right, being no further business before the subcommittee will be adjourned.